Next up, at UFC Nashville, we have the featured fight of the prelims. We have Chris Curtis taking on Max Griffin. This fight is at welterweight. Chris Curtis is going down in weight. And before you lose your mind, he's been here before. He was at welterweight before his UFC stint. He moved up to middleweight because he got into the UFC on short notice. I believe it was against Phil Hawes, was his first UFC fight. So he did it at middleweight. And he knocks out Phil Hawes. Then he knocked out Brendan Allen. And then he had so much success in middleweight, he just stayed there. But he's had a little bit of a bumpy road recently, so he's going down back to where he was at welterweight, but he is 37 years old. That's a little concerning. And before I do this fight breakdown, I did this whole spiel on my quick pick video. And Chris Curtis watched that quick pick video and commented on it. Because I started it by saying, listen, Chris Curtis a little bit.
This is another one of your black friends.
See? 3. Chris Curtis watched the video, and in the video, obviously fast-forwarded to his part, which I get. It's what I would do. Fast-forwarded to his part, and I opened it by saying, listen, Chris Curtis is a little sensitive. And then I said, but I get it. I just played a voicemail for you that we got, and the first thing out of that guy's mouth is Angelo is fat. And that wasn't the only voicemail we got saying Angelo's fat. So I get the being sensitive. When you're exposed to that many people at one time, and anybody can say whatever they want, whenever they want, however they want, I get it. So he watched that clip. I mentioned that Chris has lashed out at Jacob and I on Twitter, here on YouTube, and he commented on that video. You can see it. I pinned it, and he's a new Chris Curtis. He said, man, if I lashed out, I'm sorry. I'm a private guy. I wasn't used to all of that attention that early on. I didn't mean it. My bad. Like, it was the most humble I've ever seen the dude. He seems like a great guy, and he should win this fight. Chris Curtis is a very clean counter striker. Chris Curtis has very good awareness. Chris Curtis has a spectacular takedown defense. I don't love that he's going down to welterweight at 37 years old. And Jacob and I were there in person for his last fight when he got dropped, and that fight ended maybe a little too soon. He was going to lose that decision anyway because it was 1-1 going into the third, and he got dropped. Whether you stop it or not, he's probably losing that fight. Jacob, what were our thoughts in the moment? Did we feel like it was an early stoppage?
I mean, there was literally 1 second on the clock. There was no follow-up shots being offered. He was just on a knee looking up, and then they stopped. Literally 1 second left. And it's not, I mean, he was like, Kopylov was just walking away, and he was on a knee. It's not like he was just like glassed out on his back. He was just on a knee. He was obviously hurt, and if Kopylov followed up, he was going to get fucked up, but Kopylov was walking away. There was no follow-up shot, so you got to have some sort of more awareness if you're a ref and just fucking let it go. I mean,
yeah, and the reality is he was going to lose that fight anyway because it was 1-1 on the scorecards going into the third, and that obviously was going to seal the third. Chris Curtis is a very good fighter. Chris Curtis is being given, no offense to Max Griffin, probably his easiest opponent in his UFC tenure. This guy has fought Calvin Gastelum. He has fought Brendan Allen. He has fought Phil Hawes, who now is kind of chinny, but at the time,
Michael Morales.
Chris Curtis didn't fight Michael Morales.
Are they talking about Max Griffin?
No, I was saying that Max Griffin is probably one of the easier opponents for Chris Curtis, given who he's been fighting recently. But Max Griffin is not actually an easy opponent because, first of all, he's a true 170-pounder, meaning he's not going to be sucked out. He's used to this weight. Second of all, powerful striker. He's got an incredible amount of knockouts. He has 8 knockdowns in his UFC career. He beat the shit out of Ramiz Brahimaj, almost knocked his ear clean off of his head. He does a really good job trying to avoid the distance striking and making it something that he wants it to be, whether he wants to be in the pocket, he wants to throw those big, heavy uppercuts, and he wants to get to the head. Max Griffin is a good fighter. Max Griffin has power. Is he the same name value as a Kelvin Gastelum? No. Is he a tough outing? Yes. I still am going to pick Chris Curtis, though, because I think Chris's counter-striking is just too good, and I think when Max does throw those big power shots, Chris will be there and he'll fire back. I hate the weight cut. I hate the weight cut at this age after his last fight, but it is what it is. Chris Curtis is going to be the pick, and honestly, I'm rooting for him. The guy deserves some success and some praise. I feel like he's had a little bit of a rough road.
Does he really deserve it? Because he's kind of been a bitch to his own admission.
I like Chris Curtis. I always have.
Hey, motherfucker, I was the first person on Chris Curtis. The second he came into the UFC, I said, he's probably going to knock out Phil Hawes, and he did. And I said, he's probably going to knock out Brendan Allen, and he fucking did. Chris Curtis has been my fucking lock of the week, I think 3 times, and I think he's 0-3. He's never won as lock of the week. So I have been the biggest Chris Curtis fan. I keep picking him and picking him and picking him, and lock of the week, and lock of the week, and lock of the week. He should be fine in this matchup. I like Max. Max is also a former lock of the week. He also lost as a lock of the week, and he just probably is just not that same guy. I mean, he's a little bit older. He might have the power, but the speed is not there. I know people want to give him shit for the last fight against Chiesa. Oh, he was losing the striking versus Chiesa. He had to worry about the takedowns. He don't want to get taken down against Chiesa, which end up happening, obviously. But when the takedowns and the grappling are a threat, you're going to be a little tentative with the hands. And if you have takedowns in your back pocket and you are a grappler, you can kind of throw whatever the fuck you want to throw, and it's going to land sometimes. So this is a little bit of a different fight for Max. It's going to be mostly striking. Chris Curtis is not going to shoot a fucking takedown unless all of a sudden at 170 he's like, hey, I'm pretty big. Let me just see if I can get a takedown. Max has pretty good takedown defense. I just think that the speed isn't going to be there. Those big right hands that he's always kind of looking for. Chris Curtis has been there, done that. Honestly, what I feel like is Chris Curtis is going to dominate this fight with his pace and volume. If the cut is fine for him, could even wear down and find a finish second or third round against Max Griffin. And then we're going to have next week a 38-year-old Chris Curtis looking at his career thinking, damn, why did I get in all those 185 wars when I could have been at 170 doing my thing and maybe even being a contender? Because I understand he went to 185 and it was nice not to cut all that weight, and he was filled out and he was almost beating a lot of good people, but those were definitely some wars that he was in, and at 170 he could have been a little bit cleaner with that KO power, and I think he might come out of this fight regretting some of the decisions he made, but maybe not. I think Chris Curtis gets it done. I'm pretty confident in it. I just don't think Max is going to land the big shots. It's hard to land big shots on Chris. And even when 185ers were doing it, he was eating them pretty well. So,
yeah, and if you were going to compare Roman Kopylov is different level striker. Roman Kopylov is very, very, very good striker. And when you don't have to worry about the takedowns, to Jacob's point, then you can just be the very, very, very good striker that you are. And Chris Curtis yelled at Jacob in that fight. Jacob was telling Roman, don't box with this guy, meaning kickbox. Don't
I forgot
box.
About that, yeah.
And Chris Curtis literally, he got kicked in the nuts or something, right? He was in his corner adjusting his nuts, I believe. And you were yelling to Roman, don't box with this guy. And Chris Curtis turns around, looked at you, and said, stop helping him. It was funny. It was great. Everybody laughed. Chris Curtis seems like a good dude. Chris Curtis also, to his credit, I don't know all the details behind this. You might. Remember when he found one of his Twitter trolls in real life and it was just some fucking goblin of a kid?
Yeah, he walked right up to him. And the guy was like, oh, hey, Chris. It was just immediately nice. And Chris like, yeah, this is people act so shitty online. And then you get
face to face.
I don't know.
I don't either. But either way, we are both on the Chris Curtis side. $9,100 in DraftKings Fantasy. He's going to need to find that finish. I can't fully jump in on that pricing or the moneyline pricing just yet. I got to see what he looks like at 170 at this age after that many years removed from it. But Chris Curtis should absolutely win this fight. I think he's just a better overall fighter. If you want to check out every single pick, bet, and tool on the website, it's not just Jacob and I. We got Artem, we got BetSam. We have an artificial intelligence. We have a tool that will give you a full breakdown.
We're kind of lucky that Chris didn't get suspended.
For beating Actually, Chris didn't throw any strikes. Sean Strickland did.
Yeah, but he still stormed the thing and grabbed the guy.
Hey, maybe I was separating him from.
No, he's the one that was in the cage first and went right at the guy and grabbed him. And then Sean came up behind and fucking threw a shot over Chris.
Hey, he's crazy. All because he told Sean to suck it, right? Like something dumb like that. There must have been pre-fight stuff we didn't know about.
The biggest thing that came out of that was people were like, oh, they're friends again. Look.
Yeah. Either way, if you want to check out everything on the website, do so now. WeWantPicks.com. It's only $10 for an entire month. We have a $10 super chat from Money Max 702. This dono is from Little Evie Bear. Okay, she lived her fan dream being on UFC Embedded Episode 5 and the We Want Picks vlog. Go become a premium member right now. You can't afford not to. So Money Max, I'm going to take this off the screen. Money Max was in the vlog. He had that adorable dog. Money Max came up, said hi, said amazing things about me and you, Jacob, amazing things to my wife. And Money Max works for one of the largest, I'm going to word this wrong and he's going to get fucking pissed. One of the largest sports bet agencies, I believe, in Vegas, where people do sort of what we do. Like high rollers will work with professionals to get advice and to get inside information. And Money Max is a premium member, helps use the tools to help give some of that advice. So that dude couldn't have been nicer. I'm sorry, I forget your friend's name. He couldn't have been nicer. Evie Bear, that little cute-ass dog. It was awesome meeting you. Met him. He's in the vlog. If you haven't watched the vlog, go watch the fucking vlog. Damn it. The best part about that, though, Jacob, he was literally talking to Tiffany and was like, I don't think you understand what your husband and Jacob are doing. I don't think you know. They are changing everything they offer. And like, I wish I was recording that. So then at one point I just stand next to him and I'm just looking at Tiffany like, yeah, you listening? And then his buddy's like, you hear him, bitch? It was awesome. It was a ton of fun. So Jacob and I will be at Noche. So if anybody wants to hang out at Noche, give us your money max moment.
I'll be in VIP, so won't see most of you.
$1.99 from Unwell to Brrr. I love you guys. I'd be sad as fuck on off weeks. That was last week. Well, we appreciate you. Thank you for the super chat.
Would you rather have whipped cream or chocolate sauce for foreplay?
Whipped cream. See that chocolate sauce is even off.